Never in my life have I made somebody or triggered somebody so badly with a YouTube video I made. I made a video responding back or doing a reaction essentially to a woman talking about how she almost divorced her husband. And in the video, I pretty much said that the woman who was making the complaints that the reasoning she was giving was, well, not all that smart. And I guess that's the nicest word to say it. Granted, the video didn't get that many views. However, there is one woman that left like a dissertation of a response. I mean, she might as well just like record a video, just left a link in a comment. That's how long it was. And I was just like, I don't even know how to respond back to it. I think I got down to like the first paragraph. And after that, I was like, okay, this is just getting kind of crazy. But it made me realize something that I must have said something right. Oh, yeah. By the way, if you haven't, go ahead and comment and like or whatever. But yeah, that was just one of the few times that I've triggered somebody to that extent. And that was funny. Anyways, I was supposed to go live late last night, but I got tired and fell asleep. So I figured let's go live today. I tend to get more engagement at night, I noticed, which is fine. Most adults are normally working right now. So if I was to get a hold of an audience, it would most likely be somebody overseas at this point. Anyways, speaking of overseas, I'm just curious. How do people feel about international dating? I never really thought about it before because it's just kind of like, how can you really be in a relationship with somebody that you never seen before? I never understood long distance dating. However, I have heard stories to where people have made it work somehow, especially back in the old days. Before everybody had the smartphones, the high definition cameras, you can see clearly. Most of the time, you're talking to somebody in the chat room for a long time, and you're hoping that it's not a fake picture. And the well cameras they had back then was, I have to compare it to a TV for like the 1980s. It got the job done, but it's not like what it is today. Excuse me. Anyways, yeah. I feel like back then people had a lot more faith in the people they were talking to. But then again, that's when the start of catfishing started around back then too. Because before they had the whole entire, the filters and everything else that they have now today, people will take angle pictures. They find that perfect angle to where, a morbidly obese person will look like, an average looking person. And it's just the wonders of technology to now, how you have to do that. They just have a filter that will just change your body type and facial structure completely. Even to the point to where I still remember, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a guy using a Snapchat filter, uh, going online pretending to be a woman. But what he said was, what he did, he used that filter to capture um, guys who liked inappropriate women for the age. And that's the best, safest way to say it for YouTube. And I thought that was pretty interesting that he did that. So instead of using a fake picture or hiring somebody to, because back in the day, um, they used to do sting operations, right? They'll have like an adult, freshly turned adult, like a 19, 20-year old, 21-year old sometimes, and they'll go online, pretend to be younger, and reach out to guys to try to get them to meet. in the police departments, whenever those two people would try to potentially meet, or the guy try to meet the girl, they'll always end up arresting the guy because he was trying to interact or have relations with somebody else much younger. So instead of doing that, it's just King E, hi. And instead of doing that, it was just one of those things that now anybody can do that. Man, that's just pretty interesting. I remember back in the day when I was younger, um, when I became 18, my father told me, he was like, now that you're 18, whenever you go on a date with somebody, make sure you always check their ID. He told me that as 18. At the time, I didn't think nothing of it because I was just like, well, I'm not going to date anybody really young. He was like, I get that, Anthony, but a lot of these girls out here, they lie about their ages. So if she can't provide you her ID, don't go on a date with her. Don't entertain her. I was like, all right. Now, the reason I believe my dad, because my dad used to work for the Department of Justice. So um, he used to see a lot of people get caught up that way. And I was just like, that's a very fair understanding because, when I was younger, I used to see a lot of men uh, that seek, hey, how's it going? When I was younger, when I say younger, like when I was like in middle school, one of the big things people used to do back in the day when I was younger was go to the skating rink. The skating rink, you'll go there on a Thursday or Friday night, sometimes Saturday night. Not Thursday, excuse me. Thursday is normally adults, but Friday or Saturday night. Sometimes they have like the lock-ins to where you stay all night. But I'm bringing that up because you used to see guys that would go there who are like grown men trying to talk to middle school girls. And it would be the craziest thing because I'm just like, nobody would say or do anything. Live, how's it going? And I always found that interesting. And, it was also in movies too, that how, a freshly young man would always try to talk to somebody much younger. And even when I was in middle school, we had a middle school eighth grade dance. And one of the girls there, they had her boyfriend who was a Marine. Keep what I said, that her boyfriend was a Marine. And he brought her to the dance, or she brought him to the dance, excuse me, and she said that was her cousin to get him in there. And I was just like, oh, all the students knew that was really her boyfriend. But, to get past the packaging and everything else, that's just what they did. It was just the weirdest thing. And I always kind of curious as to why. I don't know. I got on that topic, so I was originally just talking about, people dating internationally and kind of segue into that and how it's more by faith, it seems like. Because if you're really dating somebody that's in, I don't know, Europe, Jamaica, Nigeria, uh, Thailand, Japan, wherever, it's always by faith because you're not there with the person. And there's a lot of trust there. Wait, could I tell a scary story? Yeah, go ahead, tell a scary story. I'm interested to hear it. But yeah, I just never could wrap my head around that concept of, hey, we're gonna do this. And especially you haven't met the person. Now, if you met the person already, I could kind of understand that because you guys have that connection in person. But let's say, uh, can I tell a scary story? You tell one, please. Okay. Not really much of a storyteller when it comes to scary stories. Um, interestingly enough, I remember when my daughter was young, I used to read her the story of, I want to say it was Godfather Death. And it wasn't necessarily scary. It was more a story of a lesson to be appreciative for the things that you have. I can't remember it now. If I could find a story, maybe one day I'll just come online and read that story. But a scary story. You know what? I had to get back to you. If I go on live later on tonight, like on my phone again, I'll just go ahead and try to think of one. You kind of put me on the spot with that one. Scary story. Huh. I will say this. When it comes to scary stuff in general, like scary movies, I feel like a lot of those people are misunderstood. Let me say that. So, for example, um, excuse me, what was that thing called? The most recent, most popular scary movie, Megan. Yeah, was it Megan? Yeah, Megan. I always felt that that one was kind of a little misunderstood. And the reason I say I never really saw Megan as the bad guy in the movie. I saw her as the consequences of neglect from the aunt that took in her niece, right? So yeah, she programmed Megan to be a friend and all this other kind of stuff. Instead of taking the time to do the work, she sat here and made another robot, coded it, programmed it, built it, whatever. And the robot took her instructions to the extreme, which caused her to unalive a bunch of people, the robot. However, if the aunt would have did her job and put her career to the side, because her aunt was already real well off and a brilliant woman apparently, right? So even though she didn't have that particular dream job or that goal she was working towards, if she just would have took some time to build that relationship with her niece, Megan would have never been a thing, right? That's why I'm saying that sometimes I feel like that a lot of scary movies are misunderstood, and the villains most of the time are not necessarily villains. A lot of the time, they're just victims, victims of circumstances. You know, you start thinking that way as you get older. As you get older, you start looking at the villains or the bad guys in movies, and it's like, I kind of understand it. Like the Joker. Now, it depends which version of the Joker you're talking about. Now, some versions of the Joker, it could definitely be empathetic. Are you talking about comic book Joker? Are you talking about movie Joker, cartoon Joker? And if you want to go into comic books, I would say Lex Luthor is someone who went to the extreme, who had good intentions at first, right? Depending on what version of Lex Luthor you're talking about, yes, he is a billionaire. Yes, he is arrogant. Yes, he is a quote unquote genius. But at the core of Lex Luthor, he just wanted to prove that humanity did not need Superman to save their issues, that humanity can save it themselves and fix ourselves, all this other kind of stuff. The problem is because he was so arrogant and because he was so rich and nobody really could check him, he became his own worst enemy. But at the core, he started off with good intentions. And you're saying movie Joker. Okay. So movie Joker, are you talking about the one from like the 1990s, the Heath Ledger Joker? Um, I'm trying to figure out which one. Jaden. Hi, Jaden. Hope you're doing good. And let's see what time it is. I got a meeting to go to a little bit later. All right. I'm good on time for now. But yeah, what's another good movie villain that's, or this movie person in general that was just kind of misunderstood? Hmm. Okay. The one that came out in 2024. Okay. Okay. So he just more or less had a mental illness. So in that sense, you really can't tell what he really did or caused, right? So much of that stuff seemed to be just in his head, and then other parts of it he may have done. It's hard to tell, but either way, he needed help. He wasn't the true villain. What I did find interesting though, when it came to the Joker movies, Um, at the end of the second one, he was taken out by the man who will become the real villain Joker. So in that sense, yes, he was a victim of his life that, you know, he just had a disability that just wasn't checked and it got out of control. So much so that it cost him his life and inspired people to do crazy stuff too, to where he lost his life. So yeah, I mean, he inspired the Joker, but he didn't make the Joker. The Joker was more or less put onto him because he had a nervous tick that he couldn't control. You know, so yeah, I could understand that one. That Joker was not necessarily the villain, but the guy at the end of the second movie that took him out was definitely the villain there. That ends up becoming Batman's arch rival. Yeah, other people did help to drive him crazy, and they also misunderstood him. They definitely misunderstood him. But you gotta think about it. I think that Joker movie took place in the 80s, I want to say. 80s, let's say 80s, 90s. In the 80s and 90s, people didn't really give a crap about mental health. You know, that wasn't really a thing back then. So, yeah, you see somebody just laugh at inappropriate times, they're going to, of course, go ahead and just um, attack him, go after him. Yeah, when the gang ambushed him, too. Yeah. And he still kept laughing after that point. Again, he was just a victim of his own circumstance. So, yeah, in that sense, that Joker was definitely not necessarily the bad guy. He was more or less a victim, even till the last moments of his life. Because I don't. All right, can you hear me now? I think I thought I figured out what the problem was. Okay. Yeah, that was me. I hit the mute button by mistake. I didn't realize it. Sorry about that. But what I was saying was that um, there was a YouTube video what I was doing, and people couldn't hear me on that one. Even though I went back and played it, it was playing fine for me. So I don't know. The downside of being on your phone is like they have a little buttons over here to the side that sometimes you kind of press them by mistake. So that happened there. But yeah, anybody else watching, I hope y'all subscribe and comment too. I appreciate it. Thank you for the like so far also. Appreciate you. Like I was saying though, there was another YouTube video I did to where I was just asking a question of who comes first? Um, your partner, like your husband or wife, depending who you are, your child, the spouse, child, parents, or the baby father or baby mother. And I thought that was a really good conversation that was being had on that video because it was very surprising to see how many people did not choose their spouse to come first. And sometimes I think when people hear uh, you're choosing your spouse first, that you're not giving attention and love to other people, which is not the case. But so for example, I always believe that if you're going to, can I ask you a question? Yeah, go ahead and ask the question. What's up? Do I play games? I'm assuming you mean like on a Xbox or PS5 or on your phone. If that is the case, then I would say I do play games on my phone. The only game I really play though is Raid Shadow Legends. But I'm not sponsored by them. Yeah, that is true, but I'm not a gamer like that. Um, I see people that talk about the games and strategies and things that like I just like to play them, and that doesn't really keep my interest. I mean, I figure eventually I'll get subs for just talking about things that I find interesting. I just don't want to join that clout train. But I will say though, when you see people like Speed and Kai and people like that that made a massive fortune starting off by playing those games and then going on to spend on other things, I can understand why people would want to go ahead and do that. But if I did it, it wouldn't be genuine. And I don't want to build up any platform at all, not being myself, just chasing after what other people are doing. Four people here. Thank you for the four people watching. I'm about to get off here soon in a few moments because I got to get ready for my meeting. But yeah, I don't have what? Excuse me. All right. Well, I gotta get going. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and Talk to you guys later.